Nobody knew the young female pilot had once been the most feared name in combat aviation. Not until the aircraft started breaking apart at 37,000 feet. The captain lay dying, and with his final breath, he whispered two words that changed everything: Ghost Rider. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Sarah Mitchell walked through the employee entrance of Horizon Regional Airlines at 6:30 a.m. The October morning was still dark. She carried her flight bag and a thermos of coffee, looking like any other junior pilot starting her day. "Morning, Sarah," called Jake from maintenance. "Morning, Jake. How's the weather looking?" "Messy over the Rockies. You flying to Denver?" "Yeah, 8:15 departure." Jake shook his head. "Stay safe up there." Sarah had worked at Horizon for 11 months now. The early mornings, the predictable routes, the steady rhythm of commercial aviation, it was exactly what she wanted. Normal. Quiet. Unremarkable. In the briefing room, Captain Robert Hayes was already reviewing weather charts. He was 56 with silver hair and deep lines around his eyes. "Mitchell, about time," he said. "Take a look at this system building over Colorado. We're going to hit turbulence. I'll handle the flying through the rough patches. You just monitor instruments." "Yes, Captain," Sarah said. She had heard this speech from every captain she flew with. They all treated her the same way, like someone fresh out of flight school who needed constant supervision. None of them knew the truth. None of them knew that before wearing this commercial airline uniform, she had flown F-35 fighter jets through hostile airspace on classified missions. None of them knew she had logged over 3,000 combat hours and completed 72 operations that officially never happened. None of them knew her call sign, Ghost Rider. But that was a life she had deliberately left behind. She wanted to fly without being shot at. She wanted routine instead of adrenaline. She wanted to be anonymous instead of legendary. By 7:30, passengers were boarding Flight 2847 to Denver. Sarah stood at the cockpit door, greeting passengers with her professional smile. A businessman in an expensive suit paused and turned to his colleague, loud enough for Sarah to hear. "Can you believe they let girls that young fly commercial aircraft now? What is she, 25? His friend chuckled. "Diversity hiring, man." An elderly woman stopped at the cockpit door. "Excuse me, dear. How long have you been flying?" "Long enough to get you to Denver safely, ma'am," Sarah replied politely. "But you look so young." "The captain has 30 years of experience," Sarah said gently. "We're in good hands." The woman's husband pulled her along. "Come on, Martha. The real pilot is the man." Captain Hayes gave Sarah a sympathetic look. "Don't let it get to you, Mitchell. Comes with the territory." Sarah slid into the right seat and began her pre-flight checks. Her hands moved across the controls with absolute precision. But to anyone watching, she just looked like a competent junior pilot doing her job. They couldn't see the thousands of hours in fighter jets. They couldn't see Ghost Rider. Flight 2847 pushed back at 8:15 sharp. They lifted off smoothly and climbed through the clouds. For the first 90 minutes, the flight was perfectly routine. They reached 37,000 feet and the flight attendants began beverage service. "We'll start feeling it in about 15 minutes, Hayes announced. "Better give the cabin a heads up." Sarah keyed the intercom. "Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for turbulence." Lead flight attendant Jessica Ramirez began securing carts. Nice kid, she thought, though she seemed awfully young to be in a cockpit. The first jolt came at exactly 9:47. A sharp bang rattled overhead bins and caused passengers to gasp. "Here we go, Mitchell. Keep your eyes on that weather radar," Hayes said. Sarah was already watching. Her trained eyes picked up patterns that troubled her. The turbulence wasn't behaving normally. Captain, I'm seeing some concerning patterns. I recommend we request an altitude change. Another jolt interrupted her, harder this time. The aircraft dropped suddenly. Screams erupted from the cabin. Denver Center, Horizon 2847, requesting immediate altitude change. We are encountering severe turbulence. Horizon 2847, stand by. Maintain current altitude. Then the world exploded into chaos. The aircraft pitched violently to the left. This wasn't normal turbulence. This was catastrophic. The plane shuddered as if being torn apart. Passengers screamed. Overhead bins burst open. Full power. Hayes shouted. Help me level this out. Sarah's hands moved to the controls, but she kept her touch careful, measured, the way a commercial first officer should. Even as her combat instincts screamed at her to take over completely, she held back. She couldn't reveal what she was. The aircraft began to level slightly, but the turbulence intensified. The weather radar showed something Sarah had only encountered once before, a rotating column of severe wind shear at high altitude. Denver Center, Horizon 2847, emergency descent. We need immediate clearance. Horizon 2847, you're cleared to descend immediately to flight level 300. Another massive jolt hit them. Sarah heard something crack in the fuselage. The aircraft rolled hard to the right. Hydraulics. Sarah called out. We've lost System B pressure. System A is fluctuating. Mitchell, help me get this nose down. They worked together, forcing the damaged aircraft into a descent. At 32,000 feet, the aircraft suddenly pitched upward with such violence that Sarah felt herself pressed back into her seat. Then they dropped, plummeting through empty space. Pull up. Pull up. Hayes screamed. They both hauled back on the controls, but the response was sluggish, delayed, wrong. They were falling. The altimeter was unwinding at a rate that would kill everyone in less than a minute. Sarah felt ice in her veins. This was the moment when all her training was screaming at her to act. But she couldn't. If she revealed what she could do, everyone would know. Another violent jolt, and Captain Hayes cried out in pain. He had been thrown against the control column. Blood streamed down his face. Captain! Sarah shouted. Hayes was slumped forward, barely conscious. Blood dripped onto his uniform. His hands remained on the controls but were weak, ineffective. Captain Hayes. Sarah grabbed his shoulder. His eyes fluttered open, glazed with pain. He tried to speak but coughed, and more blood appeared from his mouth. Internal injuries. I can't. Hayes whispered. Mitchell, you have to. I've got the aircraft, Sarah said. But even as she took control, she knew it wasn't enough. The aircraft was too damaged. She needed to do more than just fly. She needed to do things that would immediately reveal she was far more than she appeared to be. And if she didn't, everyone on this aircraft would die. Hayes coughed again, more blood appearing. His eyes found Sarah's face and focused with sudden clarity. Something changed in his expression. Ghost Rider, he whispered. Sarah froze. That name. That call sign. Captain, what did you? Ghost Rider, Hayes said again, stronger now. I know who you are. I flew transport missions for your squadron 5 years ago. Your commander talked about you. The pilot who could fly anything through anything. Sarah felt something crack inside her chest. He knew. Save them, Hayes breathed, blood trickling from his mouth. Save them, Ghost Rider. Then his eyes rolled back and he slumped forward, unconscious. He was dying right there in the left seat. And Sarah was alone at the controls with 146 souls depending on her. For one more second, Sarah Mitchell hesitated. Then Ghost Rider took the controls. Her hands moved with blinding speed across the instrument panel. No longer careful and measured, but lightning fast. She shut down damaged systems and rerouted others, creating a new hydraulic configuration that bypassed failed components. She rewired the Boeing 737 systems in less than 10 seconds. "Flight attendants, this is the first officer," she said into the intercom, her voice completely calm. "Captain Hayes is incapacitated. I have the aircraft. Secure all passengers immediately and prepare for emergency procedures. We will be performing unconventional maneuvers. I need you to trust me." In the back, Jessica heard that voice and felt reality shift. That wasn't the uncertain young pilot she knew. That was the voice of absolute command. "You heard her," Jessica shouted. "Secure everyone. Now." Sarah banked the aircraft hard to the left, not fighting the turbulence but using it, reading the invisible currents like a surfer reads waves. Her hands flew across the controls, making micro-adjustments every fraction of a second. She dropped the nose and dove, accelerating the descent in a way that made passengers scream, but took them out of the wind shear column. She flew right up to the structural limits without exceeding them. The turbulence began to ease at 28,000 feet. Sarah leveled off at 25,000. For the first time in 5 minutes, the aircraft flew relatively smoothly. "Denver Center, Horizon 2847 Heavy, declaring emergency," Sarah transmitted. "We have experienced catastrophic turbulence resulting in structural damage and pilot incapacitation. Request immediate vectors to nearest suitable airport." Horizon 2847, Denver Center copies your emergency. Nearest suitable airport is Colorado Springs, 70 miles southeast. Turn right heading 140. Right turn to 140, Horizon 2847. Sarah's hands moved smoothly, turning the damaged aircraft toward Colorado Springs. With Captain Hayes unconscious beside her, with damaged hydraulics and terrified passengers behind her, she flew with a confidence that seemed impossible. But she had done this before. She had brought home aircraft with battle damage far worse than this. Had landed on carrier decks in storms with failing systems. This Boeing 737, damaged as it was manageable. The approach to Colorado Springs required every bit of her skill. With compromised hydraulics, she had to use manual trim controls and differential thrust to keep the aircraft balanced. She flew a visual approach, her hands constantly moving, making tiny adjustments. When the wheels touched down on runway 28, the landing was so smooth that several passengers didn't realize they were on the ground until they felt the brakes engage. Sarah brought the aircraft to a stop where emergency vehicles waited with lights flashing. Horizon 2847, aircraft is stopped and secured. We need immediate medical attention for the captain and multiple passengers. Copy, 2847. Medical personnel approaching now. Sarah shut down the engines and sat back, finally allowing herself to breathe. Her hands were shaking with adrenaline. Beside her, Captain Hayes was still breathing but unconscious. Through the windscreen, paramedics rushed toward the aircraft. The cockpit door burst open. Jessica stood there, eyes wide with shock. "Sarah, what just happened? You just flew a damaged plane through turbulence that should have killed us all. You landed it like it was routine. Who are you?" Sarah reached into her flight bag and pulled out something she hadn't looked at in 11 months. A photograph showing her in a flight suit standing in front of an F-35 Lightning II. Stenciled on the side, "L.T. Mitchell, Ghost Rider." Jessica took the photograph with trembling hands. "Oh my God. You're military. You're not just some junior pilot." "I was," Sarah said quietly. Past tense. "I left that life behind. I wanted normal. But I guess normal is relative." "Ghost Rider," Jessica whispered. "What does that mean?" "It means I flew stealth missions in places our government doesn't acknowledge. It means I completed operations that were supposed to be impossible. It means I have skills that most commercial pilots don't even know exist. Sarah took the photograph back. And it means today I broke my promise to myself, because Captain Hayes recognized who I was and used his last conscious breath to call on Ghost Rider to save everyone. Paramedics flooded into the cockpit, working to stabilize Hayes. Sarah moved aside, then followed them out into the passenger cabin. When she emerged, passengers stared at her. This was the same young woman they had dismissed as just a girl pilot a few hours ago. Now she had saved all their lives. The businessman stood from his seat, his face pale. You saved us. I don't understand. How did you? He trailed off. I'm sorry. I said terrible things about you before we took off. Sarah gave him a small nod. You had no reason to know. But who are you? Another passenger asked. The flight attendants are saying something about Ghost Rider. Before Sarah could answer, Jessica stepped forward. It means we had someone extraordinary flying this aircraft today. Someone with skills far beyond what commercial aviation requires. Someone who gave up a legendary military career to fly normal routes, but who still had the training and courage to save us all when everything went wrong. She looked at Sarah. It means we're alive because Ghost Rider was in that cockpit. The cabin erupted in applause. Passengers stood, clapping and crying, reaching out to touch Sarah as she walked past. She maintained her professional composure until she reached the forward door. 2 hours later, Sarah sat alone in a quiet office the airport manager had provided. She had been medically cleared, given statements to investigators, and told that Captain Hayes was in surgery but expected to survive. There was a knock at the door. A man in an expensive suit entered, tall, silver-haired, with the bearing of authority. First Officer Mitchell, I'm James Caldwell, Vice President of Flight Operations for Horizon Airlines. Sarah stood and shook his hand. Sir. Caldwell sat across from her and pulled out a tablet. I've been reviewing the cockpit voice recorder data from your flight. I've also spoken with Denver Air Traffic Control and our maintenance team. He looked up at her with sharp eyes. First Officer Mitchell, I need you to explain how you managed to fly a Boeing 737 through turbulence that our engineers say should have torn the aircraft apart. Sarah met his gaze steadily. Sir, before I joined Horizon, I served 10 years in the United States Air Force. I flew F-35 Lightning II fighter jets on classified stealth operations. I logged over 3,000 combat hours and completed 72 classified missions. My call sign was Ghost Rider. I left the military 18 months ago because I wanted a different kind of flying. I applied to Horizon under my legitimate civilian credentials. Everything in my file is true. I just didn't include the classified parts. Caldwell was quiet for a long moment. First Officer Mitchell, after today, your secret is no longer secret. Every airline in the country is going to know that Horizon has a pilot called Ghost Rider who saved an aircraft through skills that exceed most of our senior captains. You can't hide anymore. The question is, what do we do about it? If you need my resignation. Resignation? Caldwell actually laughed. No. I'm here to offer you an immediate upgrade to captain, assignment to our flagship routes, and compensation that reflects your actual capabilities. Captain Hayes is expected to make a full recovery, by the way. The doctors say his prognosis is excellent, largely because you got the aircraft on the ground so quickly. He revealed your secret with his dying breath, but in doing so, he gave you permission to be who you really are. I'm just formalizing that permission. Sarah felt something loosen in her chest. I never wanted anyone to know. I just wanted normal. First Officer Mitchell, Sarah, people like you don't get to be normal. You're too skilled, too capable, too extraordinary. Today you saved 147 lives using abilities that maybe a dozen pilots in the entire world possess. That's not something you hide. That's something you honor by continuing to use those skills to keep people safe. He stood and extended his hand. Welcome to the captain's seat, Ghost Rider. Sarah stood and shook his hand, feeling the weight of decision settle over her. For 11 months she had hidden. She had pretended to be less than she was. But Captain Hayes had known the truth all along. And when the moment came that demanded everything she had, he had called on that truth to save lives. Maybe hiding had been the mistake. Maybe Ghost Rider wasn't something to be buried, but something to be honored, not in combat, but in service. Not by seeking glory, but by using every skill she possessed to keep people safe. When do I start, sir? Caldwell smiled. How about next week? Take some time to decompress. Visit Captain Hayes when he's able to receive visitors. And Sarah, thank you for everything you did today. After he left, Sarah sat alone for a few more minutes, then pulled out her phone. She had a text from Jessica. Captain Hayes woke up from surgery. First thing he said was, "Did Ghost Rider save them?" Doctor said yes. He smiled and went back to sleep. You're a legend now. Embrace it. Sarah smiled and looked out at the runway lights beginning to glow in the approaching dusk. Somewhere out there, aircraft were taking off and landing. Pilots were navigating weather, managing emergencies, bringing people home safely. It was sacred work, that trust between pilot and passenger. And maybe she had been given extraordinary skills not to hide them, but to use them in service of that sacred trust. Ghost Rider had been born in combat, forged in impossible missions over hostile territory. But Ghost Rider could be reborn here in commercial aviation, using those same skills not to fight wars, but to ensure that people made it home to their families. She picked up her flight bag and walked out of the office, through the terminal toward the parking lot. But before she could reach the exit, her phone rang. Unknown number. First Officer Mitchell, this is Dr. Catherine Chin from Colorado Springs Memorial Hospital. Captain Hayes is awake and asking for you. Sarah changed direction immediately. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The hospital was a 15-minute drive through downtown. When she arrived, a nurse escorted her to the ICU where Captain Hayes lay in bed, bandaged and connected to monitors, but very much alive. His eyes opened when she entered. Despite the oxygen tube and 4 lines, he managed a weak smile. Mitchell. Or should I say Ghost Rider? Sarah pulled a chair close to his bed. How are you feeling, Captain? Like I got thrown into a control panel at 500 miles per hour. He coughed, wincing. But alive. Because of you. They told me what you did. His eyes grew serious. I'm sorry, Sarah. I revealed your secret without asking permission. But we were dying up there, and I knew you were the only one who could save us. You don't need to apologize, Captain. You were right. Sarah paused. How did you know? How long have you known? Hayes shifted slightly. About 6 months ago, I flew a military charter mission. Got talking with a colonel named Marcus Webb. He was telling stories about pilots in his old squadron, and he mentioned this legendary aviator with the call sign Ghost Rider. Said she was the best combat pilot he'd ever seen. Could fly anything through anything. Sarah felt her breath catch. Colonel Webb had been her squadron commander. Webb showed me a photo from some award ceremony. There you were, younger, in a flight suit, standing in front of an F-35. I recognized you immediately. Hayes reached out and took her hand. I didn't say anything because I figured if you were hiding out in regional airline work, you had your reasons. But I kept it in mind, just in case. Just in case we flew into catastrophic turbulence and needed a combat pilot to save us. Sarah said with a small smile. Exactly. Hayes's grip was surprisingly strong. Listen to me, Sarah. I know you left that world behind for a reason. But today proved something important. Those skills you have aren't just for combat. They're for keeping people safe anywhere, in any situation. You saved 147 lives today. That's not something to hide. That's something to honor. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. I just wanted to be normal, Bob. And you can have that 99% of the time, Hayes said. But that 1% when things go wrong, when conventional procedures aren't enough, when people need someone extraordinary, that's when Ghost Rider matters. You can be both, Sarah. You can be the normal commercial pilot and the legendary aviator. They're not mutually exclusive. Before Sarah could respond, there was a knock at the door. A man in his 50s wearing an Air Force dress uniform stepped in. Sarah recognized him immediately and stood at attention. Colonel Webb. Marcus Webb smiled and waved her back to her seat. At ease, Lieutenant. Or should I say First Officer Mitchell now? He turned to Hayes. Captain, I hope you don't mind the intrusion. When I heard what happened, I had to come see for myself. The rumors are true, Colonel, Hayes said. Ghost Rider saved us all. Webb looked at Sarah with pride and understanding. I heard you left the service. Didn't know it was here in Colorado. How are you, Sarah? I'm fine, sir. Just trying to live a quiet life. Webb pulled up another chair. I'm going to speak frankly. The Air Force has been following your career since you left, not in a surveillance way, but in a we still care about our best pilots way. When news of today's incident hit the wire, certain people started asking questions. Questions that led back to you. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. Sir, I'm a civilian now. I fulfilled my service commitment. Relax. I'm not here to drag you back to active duty. Webb leaned forward. I'm here because what you did today is going to make waves. The NTSB is going to investigate. Aviation authorities are going to want to understand how you accomplished what you did. And the media is going to dig into your background. Within 48 hours, the Ghost Rider story is going to be everywhere. I wanted to give you a heads up and offer support if you need it. What do you recommend, sir? Be honest. Tell your story, not the classified parts, obviously, but the broad strokes. You served with distinction. You earned one of the most legendary call signs in modern military aviation. You left honorably and pursued civilian flying. Today, when faced with an impossible situation, you used your training to save lives. That's not a story to hide from. That's a story to be proud of. Hayes nodded from his bed. The Colonel's right, Sarah. You're going to be in the spotlight whether you want it or not. Better to control the narrative. Sarah looked between the two men, one her former commander, one her current captain. Both seeing her clearly for who she really was. No more hiding. No more pretending. Okay, she said finally. I'll tell the story. But on my terms. I'm not looking for fame. I just want people to understand that what happened today was about training and preparation meeting opportunity. Webb smiled. That's where you're wrong, Lieutenant. Not just any pilot could have done what you did. That's what makes you Ghost Rider. But I respect your humility. It's one of the things that always made you exceptional. They talked for another 30 minutes. Webb filled Sarah in on some of her former squadron mates. Hayes shared his prognosis, full recovery expected within 6 weeks. And Sarah found herself relaxing, surrounded by people who understood both versions of herself. When she finally left the hospital, it was after 10 p.m. The Colorado sky was clear and full of stars. Sarah stood in the parking lot, looking up, thinking about all the nights she had flown through skies just like this on classified missions. She pulled out her phone and saw dozens of missed calls and messages. News outlets requesting interviews, fellow Horizon pilots asking if the rumors were true, even a message from her old flight instructor, heard Ghost Rider came out of retirement today. Proud of you, Mitchell. One message stood out, from Jessica, Sarah, passengers from our flight have started a social media campaign thanking you. Hashtag Ghost Rider Saves Lives is trending. You're a hero whether you want to be or not. Sarah opened social media and searched the hashtag. Hundreds of posts, photos of the aircraft on the ground, passenger testimonials. News articles with headlines like, "Mystery Pilot, Ghost Rider, Saves Commercial Flight Using Military Combat Skills." There was even a video filmed by a passenger during the landing, showing the aircraft touching down with textbook precision despite visible damage. The caption read, "This is what a legend looks like. Thank you, Ghost Rider." Sarah closed the app and put her phone away. Webb was right. The story was out there, spreading faster than she could have imagined. By tomorrow morning, everyone would know. The quiet life she had built over the past 11 months was over. But maybe that was okay. Maybe trying to hide Ghost Rider had been like trying to hide a fundamental part of herself. Maybe the real mistake had been thinking she had to choose between being a combat pilot and being a commercial pilot, when the truth was she could honor both. The next morning, Sarah woke up to find her phone ringing constantly. She ignored most calls, but accepted one from James Caldwell. "Sarah, how are you holding up?" "Still processing everything." "Well, I have an update. The FAA completed their preliminary investigation overnight. They've reviewed the recordings and interviewed passengers and crew. Their finding is that you performed emergency procedures consistent with your training and experience, and that your actions directly prevented catastrophic loss of life. They're recommending you for commendation." Commendation? Official recognition from the Federal Aviation Administration. Caldwell's voice was firm. "Sarah, I also want you to know that Horizon is standing behind you completely. We're proud to have you. When Captain Hayes recovers and you upgrade to captain, we want you to consider becoming a check airman, someone who evaluates and trains other pilots. Your skills would be invaluable." "I appreciate that, sir. I really do. Take all the time you need. Your position here is secure." "And Sarah, thank you." After hanging up, Sarah sat on the edge of her hotel bed, looking at the photograph of her younger self standing in front of that F-35 with Ghost Rider stenciled on the side. She had tried so hard to distance herself from that identity, to be someone different, someone normal. But Captain Hayes had been right. She could be both. She could honor her past while building her future. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unfamiliar number, but the message made her smile. "Mitchell, this is Chin Marcus from yesterday's flight, your first officer during the crisis. Just wanted to say it was an honor flying with you. When you upgrade to captain, I hope I get assigned to your crew. Also, my 10-year-old daughter wants to be a pilot now because she saw you on the news. Thank you for being someone she can look up to." Sarah typed back, "Thanks, Marcus. Looking forward to flying with you again. Tell your daughter that if she works hard and stays determined, she can fly anything she wants. No limits." As she sent the message, Sarah realized something profound. She had spent 11 months hiding because she thought being Ghost Rider meant being defined solely by combat. But Ghost Rider wasn't just about what she had done. It was about what she represented. Excellence, dedication, the refusal to accept limitations, the courage to use her skills when lives depended on it. That didn't belong only to the military. That belonged everywhere. In commercial cockpits that in flight training programs. In inspiring the next generation of aviators who needed to see that legends could look like anyone, come from anywhere, and that gender and youth weren't barriers to exceptional achievement. Sarah packed her bag and checked out of the hotel. She drove back to the airport to catch a flight home, ready to face whatever came next. The media attention would die down eventually. The investigations would conclude. Life would find a new normal, one where she no longer hid but also didn't seek the spotlight. She was Ghost Rider. She had always been Ghost Rider, and she always would be Ghost Rider. Not because of what she had done in the past, but because of what she would continue to do, fly with excellence, inspire others, and be ready when the moment demanded everything she had. The young woman they had called just a girl pilot, until turbulence hit and the captain's last words revealed the truth that had been there all along. That legend sometimes hide in plain sight, waiting for the moment when they're needed most. And when that moment came, Ghost Rider answered the call. She always did. And she always would.